What's going on, everybody? It's Matt, aka the Lumberjack Landlord, and his good buddy Dion. Dion, how you doing, my man?
I'm doing great. I have to remember when you hit live, it goes back like 30 seconds, and I'm thinking, what was I doing? What were we saying just before you hit go?
We weren't doing anything that we shouldn't have been doing. I was literally making a landlord call. You were literally making a landlord email. Check off that 2 minutes this month of having to manage an issue. But we had scheduled time to talk together today, and you're like, hey, why don't we just do a live so we can answer some people's questions? And I was like, I mean, that sounds like a great idea. So we're just here doing a live, just kind of talking to people. And the thing that I really wanted to kind of cover today, first and foremost, was the idea of rents crashing. Lots of the crisis guys, the crasher guys, the real estate agents that don't actually really sell anything anymore, or the mortgage brokers who aren't really doing many deals anymore, they've got a lot of free time. So they're doing a whole lot more YouTube stuff. And so I think the challenge is that a lot of these guys also aren't landlords. They're not they are, many of them, believe it or not, are renters. So I wanted to talk to you about was the fact that you and I have had a lot of conversations just in the last week, talking to other landlords, talking to property managers, talking to property software companies that are actually watching this data. We're seeing it real time. We're seeing the things adjusted in these systems real time. So it's not even, this historical data or look at what we saw in Zillow. It's factual. It's what's happening. So what I wanted to do was just kind of talk to folks about that. I know that you had one specific experience talking to a software company, and I wanted you to share that data because I want to share with landlords what actual real mom and pop landlords are experiencing in today's market when it comes to rents, because it's a little bit different than what we're seeing in all these hyperactive crash videos. So Dion, talk me through kind of where you got some of that information and what information you in fact have.
So I don't want to derail or whatever, but you can deconstruct my segue after, make sure I don't go too far. If you're getting your information on investing from an agent that isn't an investor, or a broker who's going to need a side hustle for the next year because their business crash in transactions is a crash in their business.
Yes.
And they're there's a guy in Arizona, Javier, I forget his last name, great channel, watch him all the time. Yes. He does live streams like this. He's an agent. He has like the side of this industry. I don't know. Ton of great information, right? I would not listen to him for investing advice. He doesn't talk to investors. Right. The average real estate agent, over 90% never own a rental, right? And then there's 4 tiers of people who pay for real estate. The top tier is home buyers. They buy based on payment, so they'll spend the most for a house. And then you have investors, we buy based on yield, so we'll pay the second most for a house. Then you have flippers who are looking for what they can do value add for. And then you have wholesalers. So the realtors and the real estate agents want to work with the home buyer. So most of their information is designed for that person that's buying their house, their forever home, that's doing it based on family size and school district and all that stuff that really doesn't matter to an investor.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So you're going to hear a lot about rents dropping. Mm-hmm. Large apartment complexes. So if you have in a town, you have 100 investors and you have 2 big firms that have 300 unit places, and the 300 unit place does we're not going to go up $200 this year. We're only going to go up $150. So that's a $50 rent drop. You're going to see that statistic come out. Mm-hmm. So I reached out to Dana, the CEO of Hemlane, and they have 3,000 owners on their platform and 18,500 units. So it's not small, and it's not in any one concentrated market. They're kind of all over the country. Not once this year, not one person renewed a lease at a lower amount than last year. Mm-hmm. It's one of those times where you have to be careful where you get your information from, and what is the reason behind, what's the motivation behind somebody saying rents are crashing.
Right.
So if you're an investor, and this is something a lot of people get wrong in the comments, not the people who watch our content all the time and kind of hear us talk and know that neither one of us has to work because of how we've invested. And that's what we're trying to share with people, is how to do that, right?
Sure.
We're not in the convincing business. So the people who want to watch the crash videos, go for it. Yep. You like the fear porn, go for it. Sure. But the people who are looking for, how do you invest in any market? How do you invest and hold for a long time so that you actually benefit from it? Rents have never gone down market wide, not once, ever, since we've started tracking the data. And I mean, yeah, you can have a local area go down if you don't have enough economic drivers. So hopefully people watching us are looking for, diversified locations, diversified tenant bases, not going out to, and don't take this wrong if this is where you invest, but Port Angeles, Washington, whether we're like two things, the port and the mill, and then the mill goes away.
Oh,
And it
yeah,
becomes a Airbnb destination and people adjusted, but the people who are doing buy and hold might have run into trouble. But if you're in an area with several different economic drivers, think of how much rent demand is going to stay strong based on this one metric.
right.
A lot of people want to buy a house, right? They've been wanting to buy for 2 years, but somebody's been saying there's a crash coming. There's a 20% crash coming by the end of summer, which we never saw. And people still watch that channel because of some psychological thing I can't understand. But now let's say, okay, they're done. They've waited 2 years. They've been listening to people scream crash for 2 years. They're finally going to buy a house.
Sure.
Now they can't.
Yeah.
Prices haven't come down enough. Interest rates are still high, even though they are compressing right now. They're going to be, it looks like they're down into the sixes again, and we could see more compression. So while the Fed's raising rates, that doesn't mean that mortgage rates go up. Right now, lending fear is less, so they're more confident, so they're going to do some compression. So that's why we saw rates drop in the last week.
Absolutely.
And so they're going to try to go buy. They don't qualify for what they want, which means as property owners with tenants, we're seeing more qualified applicants, higher credit scores, more income, because they can't buy. So if there's more qualified applicants for rentals, why would rents go down?
Sure. I agree with all that. I think the other thing too is that we are just seeing now, we had reported back in September about FMR changing for HUD.gov. HUD.gov is basically the housing and urban development. That is the sector of the government that actually controls housing vouchers and pricing for those vouchers, and then does their budget based on their about 2.35 million vouchers that they have active. What's really interesting about that is, as I look at that scenario, a lot of those numbers were up, and they were up anywhere from, I put the link in, which was HUD.gov, and then just search for FMR, and then you can select FMR, and then you can actually pick what you want to pick. So what's really interesting is that those were the numbers that were going up. And while market had continued to skyrocket, they had actually skyrocketed now as well. I'm newer to the program, but Dion, I'm sure that you'd never seen a 10 to 14% increase, right? It's usually 2%, 3% cost of living, or flat.
Or flat for 2 years, and then a like a 5% jump, and then flat, and then and sometimes there would be an increase. And the local one wouldn't do it because there wasn't the demand.
Agreed.
But that hasn't been for 5 years. So
yeah, it's true. It hasn't been for 5 years. And I think that I think the craziness about this is that I'm seeing all these continued crash videos. Hold on one second. Landlord issue that we handled, but I think so. What's interesting to see is those numbers coming up from a Section 8 perspective, housing, right? Section 8 housing. I use those terms interchangeably because some people don't know it's now called housing, but it's a housing voucher. So that being said, what I think is very, very interesting is that those numbers having gone up. So Dion and I are all about reporting in the now. When you're looking at a graph, you're looking at historical data. What I think is really interesting is the number that you shared from a Hemlane perspective.
0, not one lease renewed at a lower amount. And so here's
out of how many again?
18,500.
18,500 for one software company with landlords all over the country, 18,500 units represented in that product. And where did that put them? 0 were lower than last year. That's active as of 1 week ago.
So what we saw a lot with housing was, look at that, housing is down 50%, because
Right.
at the peak, we were up 14% from last year. We're currently up 7% from last year as a market nationwide.
Right.
So that's a 50% crash. They just played with the numbers to say, look, properties are up 7%, but they're crashing, right? It gets views. It's a fear tactic. And like Elise said, I love it.
Yeah.
More fear videos, please. Less competition for the rest of us. So while I wouldn't use Rentometer because, like you said, it's using historical data. Here's one thing I would like to use historical data for, to talk about the strength of rents going forward. I never predict they're going up. I never predict anything. I never count on them going up.
Sure.
I actually invest like I expect them to go down 50% so that I don't have to go back to work, because but if you live around a base, so I live near Joint Base Lewis McChord, an Air Force and Army base in Washington State, one of the larger ones on the West Coast. It's one of the economic drivers in my area. It can actually go away, and I still have Boeing, Amazon, Port, all the other things. So I'm not base dependent, and I don't allow more than 1/3 of my tenants to be military. I don't advertise to try to have more than 1/3 of my units go to military. So I'm not devastated if it did go away.
That's right.
But around 2014-15, they raised the BAH for an basic allowance for housing, but they get paid a stipend for living off base if there's not enough room on base, for like $1,460 or $80 to $1,800. And immediately, within a month, all average rents went up $400.
Right.
So what we've had in the last 2 years is 20 to 40% rent increases in most markets. It was way over that in my market. I had 20 to 28%. Tenant requested rent increases. They asked for the rent to go up 20, 28%, which means the actual rent increase with just tenant renewals was more than that. That's the historical data that the housing authority is going to be using.
Right.
You talked about the website you shared. They look at the last 5 years, and then they calculate what next year is going to be. The last 2 years are soon going to be part of the metric for calculating the last 5 years, which means what the housing authorities will pay is going to go up, which is not going to soften what renters will pay.
Correct.
So I'm not sure what the benefit is. Normally I could see, crash videos get views saying there's a crash coming, so don't go buy because of all these scary reasons. So they get more views than the content we put out, because we're talking to the smaller group of people who actually want to take action, own rentals, and be financially free, not the people who are looking for the excuse to not take action. Where's the motivation? So this is a question for you. Where's the motivation for the realtors and the lenders that are making videos saying rents are going to come down?
They need their penny per view to catch up to my stacks of racks. It's just that simple. Just that simple.
Well, especially when transactions are down as far as they are. I mean, less deals happening.
Yeah. I mean, unless there was a magic button where all of a sudden they started making twice as much per deal to make up for half as many transactions, I don't think there's going to be much there. But, again, we pride ourselves on sharing the data real time. I'm real with you guys. Here's what I will tell you. This month in November, we saw days on market of the rental units. It took longer to rent, but here's why. I didn't rent them to free market rents. I rented them to housing. Housing is a process. You have to fill out your HAP contract. You have to fill out your request for inspection. You have to then cure anything that needs to be taken care of for inspection. There's this process. So it's about, I'm not sure what it's like in your state, Dion, but here it's about 3 weeks or so for that whole entire process between inspection, HAP contracts.
If your house is already approved, I would say 3 weeks. If your house isn't approved, I could say it could take a month and a half.
Okay, so my house not approved, never had a housing tenant in there before. We did it in about 3 weeks.
Nice.
What's really interesting is, so not only did we do that in 3 weeks, but here's what's also really, really exciting. The rent for that unit was that unit was rented out in 2020 for $1,995 a month. That unit just rented out in November of 2022 for $2,625. Guys, I don't know. I'm a ninth grade dropout, but maybe you can help me. Is that higher or lower?
So now let's say, so how much did it rent for again?
So 26.25 is the
Okay.
new rent. The old rent was 19.90.
So you rented it for 26.25.
We did.
2 years ago, it was 19 something.
Correct.
All right. So that's what people are seeing everywhere, but it might not rent for 26 somewhere, right? So they'll go, it was 19,
Sure.
tenant moves out, I'm going to list it for 26. So like Angel is saying, there's more rentals available
Exactly.
and they're not renting as fast, right? So maybe the number was 23 or 24 in that area. That's still 15% increase in 2 years.
Yeah.
That person just didn't get the 30% that you had, or I did the math way wrong on that. Don't attack me. But I mean, they didn't get as big an increase, but they're not going to go, well, I think I can get 26, but I could probably get 24. So I'm going to list it at 24. They
No.
listed at 26. It sits
Sure.
for a week or two, and then they go to. I had a friend that just did this like 2 months ago. She listed like 20. It was 20. You helped me with her project. It was 26. Didn't
Mhm.
go 24.50. Where like 2 months before the other unit in the same thing went for 21 or 22. So it was
Right.
still a $2 increase in 2 months. But people would say, well, it sat for 2 weeks. Right, at 26, which for that area for her was an overshot of what the rents could be. It's not like if you want to sell your house, an agent will sometimes try to be a psychologist and say,
Right.
it's worth 3. We're going to list for 250 to create a feeding frenzy and get it bid up. Or they go, it's worth 3. We're going to list it at 330 and see what you get. If you're in a hurry, you just list for 3, see if you get it.
Right.
With rents, most people have about a month before they get nervous. You have a tenant move out, you get all your repairs done, and you think, okay, I got about a month. If it goes longer than a month, I'm starting to pay the mortgage, and I don't want to do that. That's not 9 months. I didn't buy a place for me to pay the mortgage. I bought a place for someone else to pay the mortgage.
Right.
So I'm making a video soon on why I don't ever want to pay mortgages off.
Good.
Right. Exactly.
I'm thanking God that you're not trying to twist something that makes it make sense to pay off a mortgage early.
Right.
My head might explode.
I know. I did it one time, but it was you can only have 4 mortgages in your name. And
in that case, it makes sense, right? Because then you're trying to
but again, I was twisting it.
Yes.
It didn't make sense then either. I didn't know. I was uneducated. I didn't know asset-based, DSCR, seller financing, like all the options beyond the 4 in your name or that I would have gone for. But you have a couple of super chats you should get to.
Yeah. So that's all. Thank you very much for the super chat. 499. I appreciate you, that's all. I asked Dion this earlier and wanted your opinion on this, Lumberjack. Should you account for PM if you are self-managing? I was thinking setting aside 8%. Yeah, I don't think that there's ever an issue with being more conservative. The only thing that you ever have to recognize about being more conservative is it just slows your growth. Slowing growth is okay, especially in tough times, because what you want is you are more focused on capital preservation than you are with explosive growth. And at the end of the day, we do this because we're trying to create legacies for our family. We're trying to get out of having to work on 9 to 5. And so the last thing that you want is being too aggressive and then getting blown up. Like some of these guys in the market with BRRRRs are going to get blown up just a little bit because they might not get the refinance that they need. They might not get the stuff that they need to get in order to do that next deal, or even worse, really cover their expenses and not create an alligator like Mike from One Rental at a Time talks about. So that's all. I think being conservative like that is actually really smart. I think I would take that extra 8%. And then as you watch that stack up over time, if there is that emergency where you do need to, for some reason, bring in a PM, well, now you've already built that cost into your structure. It also likely, that's all, if you are like most people, knowing that you have an extra 8% expense that you're having to account for, you will likely be more aggressive in your rents because you recognize that you have to create that bigger buffer. Now, that doesn't mean that just because it costs you more that you can charge more. What it does mean is that you need to look more closely at your numbers, rent box, rent box, rent box. Look at your rent box, really understand that. Don't be afraid about being at the top of the market or towards the top of the market, so long as the product justifies it. The one thing that I hear about very often in the wintertime, right now, renting sucks. It's horrible. Why? Because you're a week away from Thanksgiving, you're 4 weeks away from Christmas, you're 5 weeks away from New Year's, and people aren't buying stuff or renting stuff now. They want to stay put where they are. The good news is when you find a qualified tenant in this market, they have to move. They must move. They need to move. The downside is that there's plenty of people that are going to want to move or need to move that are needing to move for the wrong reason. They're needing to move because they're likely getting evicted. That's usually the higher concentration of tenants we find in the wintertime, is people that have to because they're losing their other place, they're getting evicted, they have this, that, or the other situation going on. It's almost always a story. So that's all I think. I think your thought is valid. I don't see anything wrong with it. The only thing it does is mildly slow down growth, but this is really about capital preservation and making sure that you're also getting the most for your asset. Dion, thoughts on that answer?
Yeah, so that was during a live stream. I got the same question, and I think you were a lot more concise than I was. I tried to break it down where it's taking me less than 2 hours to self-manage 16 units that in no way would be worth the third, $3,000, so $33,000 a year for a couple hours a month. I wouldn't want to pay somebody for that, and that's just the fee,
Right.
not the upcharge for handyman, the upcharge for materials, and then I went into some. The first year, almost all my properties are between 10 and 17% cash on cash return. Second year, they're all over 20%.
Right.
So the property management thing, it exists when I get to the age where I would want property management. But I liked your answer better.
Have better processes in place. That's one of the things I'm going to talk about in my upcoming course, is setting yourself up to be your own property manager, even if you're remote. That's a skill, because property managers are taking way too much of a chunk of the pie. If you can be the quarterback and the one who's actually putting everything together and having those resources in the field, you largely don't need a property manager. You just don't. And so, go ahead.
Sorry, the thing that got a big response at the the in-person ORAT event was breaking down the metric of that 6 to 10% fee from your property management of your gross is somewhere between 50 to 60%
yes.
of your net.
Yes.
Right? That ends up being a ton. So would you want to set aside 50% of your net in your calculations? I think you might run into problems with, I'm never going to get a home run. I'm never even going to get a base hit if that's what you're looking at. So that's why one of the reasons why I don't use it as a calculation.
Totally agree with that. And I think that that's the key. Right now, we might look at something different as this is capital preservation. It's okay to pivot. I don't know what's going on in your specific market. I know what's going on in mine. Guess how I got my capital preservation? I refied out of 23 properties and I stuck 7 stacks of cash somewhere else that's literally sitting there waiting for me to do deals. I've continued to do deals with that cash, but I still have massive reserves sitting there ready to buy the next thing. But I already did it. I did it a year ago. If I hadn't done that, I'd be making some of these shifting points. But because I did that, because I took a lot of legacy inventory or legacy assets that I had, recapitalized them, refinanced them, and then created cash there, I have my reserves and I created my reserves in a different way. This is what makes people great operators, is being able to see that, manage, anticipate, and run the business. That's what makes a great operator. So
I probably shouldn't share this as an overshare, but I was going to tell you off camera. I don't even know if I can. So no names. I was sitting next to somebody who doesn't know that I have a YouTube channel, doesn't know. They know that I have some rentals. I think they know that I retired. They're a family member. Okay. I haven't seen them in a while. And I'm looking at my app, paying off my credit card statement because we had gone to lunch, and they saw the accounts. Now, like you, I have some cash stacked from the last couple of years. My last purchase was May of 2021. So a year and a half-ish now I've been saving for the next purchase, right? I don't have lumberjack stacks of cash, but I have what is not normal in the McNeely family for a stack of cash. And they see it, and they almost died because they couldn't breathe. They were eating, and it's the wrong time to see it. And I had to explain, it's just an app where I pretend numbers to see what I would do. And they were, oh, okay, that makes sense. Like, there was no way in the world they were going to believe that a human can have money in their bank account that isn't just intended for the next month's bills. Like, that's most of the people I interact with outside of YouTubeville, that's their life. Yeah. I mean, the idea of $1,000 sitting in an account that's not being used makes them nervous.
It absolutely does.
And not used like for investment. I mean, like
For bills.
the clothes, the food, the whatever. I mean, I get it. So yeah, that was an overshare. I shouldn't have went there, but go ahead. Sorry, I cut you off.
But this is exactly right, guys. This is what we're seeing. I'm still seeing rents up. I can't even tell you that they're going up slower than they were. But every month I've had properties to rent. September we rented, October we rented, November we rented. We've rented, and all of those rents across the board were up, with the exception of one property. That property was very, very, very specific. The reason that the rent went down in that property was because we went from a corporate lease to now putting that in housing. Corporate leases always pay more. They just do. And because they're a bigger company and they have a different calculation for how they pay. The key is that I'm diversified. I have about 7 to 9% of my units in corporate leases. This is an area where, I'm being honest with you, rent went down, but it went down not based on market. It went down based on corporations overpay, and housing Section 8 typically underpays a little bit. And I can tell you the delta was about, so it was 2,500. It's now 2,333. So the difference is $167. And that $167 on 25 on 2,500. So it's about 6.5%, 7%. If math was serving. But the key here again is, as I look at that situation, I am now going from a corporate side of things to a housing side of things. That person will likely be in that unit for 10 years and I'm going to have zero turnover.
So before you get to the next super chat, I had an idea where I think we're going to see more evidence of the fear mongers that go rents are crashing.
Sure.
So the emergency housing voucher program,
yes,
10 to 20% more than the housing voucher program.
That's correct.
And was planned to be temporary.
It was.
This was not forever, right? So as that is ending in your area, October, November, December, a lot of them are coming to an end.
They are.
If so, some of those will be evictions, probably, and so far some being 100%, basically. But let's say they did qualify and they go to the housing voucher program. They'll be able to say, here's an example of a 10 to 20% rent decrease because of an emergency program that went away. Right. That is not who we were renting to. And even for someone like you, 135 units, I think you had 6 so far that were rented.
So we had a total population of 11. We had 6 people that had gotten assistance that weren't able to pay their next month's rent. We worked with all of them to figure out what they could in fact afford, because now they were able to get fuel assistance. So what was really neat about what we did was that program had come to us and said, we want everything included. So heat, hot water, water, sewer, gas, oil, electricity, cable, we want everything included. So I had to kind of do the math and come up with a number and say, this is the number. So the other thing too is what's actually being reported might not be accurate. And what I mean by that is this: if they were at $2,500 during the winter time, $2,500 a month for that rental unit, now we're able to rent that unit out for $1,800 because we're taking away all of the $700 a month of expenses with oil, natural gas, heat, hot water, electricity, everything else. And so when I came up with the number for some of these units, it was having to basically understand, I don't know what all the costs are going to be. So I have to make sure that there's enough in there to cover all those costs. And in some cases, believe it or not, it wasn't enough. In other cases, it was. But we've been actually on the path of trying to keep those folks in housing and work with them, as opposed to just going, no, yeah, you can't pay, too bad, so sad, you're evicted. No, we want to sit down and work with those folks. But I can tell you again, that number going from 25 to 18, the rent's not down. It's only down based on the $700 a month of other added expenses and all the other costs that were taken out of that. Dumpsters, trash, all these other things, because they wanted that all in number. I know Dion, you and I have worked with tons of contractors, and when you just go, give me a price that you know it's not going to go over that. Well, what do they have to do? That's the fastest way to overpay. Because you and I don't want to be, or they don't want to be in a spot as a contractor going, geez, it's going to be 3,000. You're like, whoa, I was expecting 1,500. They're like, well, it might only be 18 or 1,900, but you're saying I can't go over and I don't know what I'm going to find. This is why we like to make sure that we're only charging for the actual rents themselves, because these other numbers can also get inflated. But again, I tell you, only rent that I had that went down was because it would transition from a corporate lease to a Section 8 lease. It went down 6-7%. However, when next year's numbers come available, guess what? It's actually going up 10%. So it will go past what the corporate rent rate was in literally less than 12 months. And I have a tenant that I likely won't ever have to move. All right, let's get to some more super chats. Millennial Mike, what's up, buddy? Help tell YouTube these guys' channels need to be promoted more. Super chat them up. Thank you, my man. I appreciate that. Angel R. Matt, when renovating bathrooms, do you prefer showers or bathtubs? It really depends on what area you're in. If you are ever going to rent to a housing tenant or a Section 8 tenant, you likely need to have a bathtub, because if it's a 3-bedroom count, 3 or higher, they're going to have kids and they're going to want a bathtub, and a shower's not going to do it for them. So my suggestion always is bathtub if you can. If it's like in a swanky part of town, it's like a downtown area, it's a roommate situation, or it's a couple where they need an office and they have a bedroom, a bathroom for the baby or something like that. Again, once that baby starts to get a little bit older, bath time is a real thing for most kids. Dion and I, not so much. It was more hose in the yard. But go ahead.
So Angel's question goes on a little bit further down, where she talks about she has a couple of nurses living there and they're not happy with the peeling paint in the bathroom. So I agree with you. I would prefer tub, unless you have more than one, and then one might only be a shower. You're right, Angel. It's not optimum to do a rehab with the tenants in place, but if they're not happy about peeling paint, I think I would have at least a minor repair done. You can glaze a tub if the problem is the tub itself. You can recaulk, you can sand and come close to the same color of paint without having to do the whole thing where they don't have a use of a bathroom for a day, so that you're putting in some effort. And on tenant turnover, definitely, like you allude to, that's when you do a full rehab of the bathroom.
Yeah, the other thing you can look at too, Angel, is there's actually a video on my channel that I did with somebody. Her name was Emma. She was actually a program manager for a spraying company. I would watch that video. She'll give you a lot of tips and tricks and kind of what their process is, so that way you can really understand what you're going to go through and what that tenant might go through in that time as well. Millennial Mike, as of this upcoming Sunday, I will be the first person ever to meet all 3 amigos in person. Call me Nick Fury, because I'm putting together a team. I know. I feel like Mike, we're gonna be all working for Millennial Mike in like the next 6 months, dude. That's what I feel like. I'm just waiting.
I'm good with that. If you ever saw him on TikTok,
yeah, he's.
I'm good. I will. Here's. This is gonna sound horrible. My YouTube channel, I'm trying to share how I reach financial freedom, and it will grow to the people who are lazy and want to reach financial freedom. That's not a very big segment of people. My channel will grow because I know Millennial Mike and you. Your guys' channels are going to blow up when people realize the content you can put out, like his did on TikTok. He's just freaking entertaining. Like at the live event, I mean, I think he could have done 8 hours of just host the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I would have sat there the whole time. It was awesome. So
it's we got a great group. I love working with our team. It's a lot of fun. All right, Dion, how's the retirement timeline looking? It's looking fine, Dion.
It's looking fine.
It's looking fine. It's
Your
really
words sound different when the record button is on.
Yeah, it does. It's going fine. It's still TBD, but every day I've never been this close to retirement. I'll say it that way. I've never been this close. Yeah, Dion, shut up. All right, real quick. Well, Chester, self-PMing systems as part of a course sounds like a fantastic idea. Chester, you're my man. I appreciate you. Thank you very much for the $5 super chat. And I agree. I think it's the biggest issue that I see I have frankly, in the last 5 years, especially when we started to get larger in size, I started to consider, hey, maybe a PM, maybe I need a PM, maybe I need a PM. Granted, I was watching some other channels that were like, yeah, maybe you should get a PM. And I'm like, yeah, maybe I should get a PM. And then I start doing math. And every time it breaks down, when I start doing the math, I'm like, they're going to make how much? And I get to keep how much? Yeah, no, that's not, no, nope. I will learn to professionally forward the text message before I ever am paying a PM that kind of money. And so one of the things that I've actually built, here's what I've built. I've built a team where I have a primary and a backup plumber, primary and a backup electrician, primary and a backup agent. Because of the last year that we spent home with my daughter's sickness, and while she was, thankfully, we got the miracle that we were asking for. The amazing thing is that it forced me to run my business differently. What I was able to put together was a team of people where I am the quarterback, and it's just a matter of which wide receiver or which tight end I'm throwing the ball to. And if you heard me say tight end, there is somebody on the team that we refer to as the tight end. And it's because they are uptight, not for any other reason. But the cool thing is that being able to manage it that way and how we set it up and all of the breakdowns of how we do things, systems and processes. It's hard to believe, but Dion, if he did it this way, might even spend less than 2 hours a month. Shocking, I know. But there's one of the things we talked about, Dion, was doing a hem lane and door loop kind of comparison. So we're going to connect once Dion's kind of back from all of his travels. We're going to connect and do something like that just to kind of show you guys kind of just general workflows. I know Dion's got some workflows that he's in love with hem lane. I've got some workflows that I'm in love with my product door loop. And so we just want to walk people through those. And so you guys can see when you find the right system for you and for your business, there are some people that will love hem lane. There are some people that will love door loop. What was Dion and my job? Making sure that we shared with you our experiences so you guys could take advantage of the experience that we had, because I always like to say, I'm eating my own dog food. I am using all of these products, and these are all products that I use on the daily. It's the same thing with all my landlord reviews. All those products are things that we use to manage our business. So you can't really go wrong with that, because it's proven. It's not just, well, we think this should work. We don't do stuff that way.
No, and this traveling is actually helping me. I'm for the first time having handyman go through the platform, and
Awesome.
It feels weird. I mean, I see the communications, and I could jump in, but I don't want to. And so I booked my flight back. I'll be back in Washington Saturday, and so next week be a good time for us to do that. And then I see really quick here, Laura, who's probably not with us because she's at work, but we appreciate that she logged in, just rented her unit for $150 increase. So she's killing it. She's in Florida, where I have a friend who's investing in Florida that now has bought a primary, bought a single family as a rental, bought a duplex as a rental, is doing really well. So they've had 2 storms go through that have caused a lot of damage.
Mm-hmm.
Less houses, less rentals, more need for rentals with houses being repaired. And there are some, I believe, mentally challenged people out there making videos on the crashing Florida housing market. I'm just done with that. I don't get it.
But Dion, to them, respect to them, it is crashing to them. They used to literally wake up in the morning with somebody calling in and saying, I just faxed you a P&S that's 100,000 over ask. To them, it is a depression. To them, they are going to be depressed. To them, they better have had a pretty light lifestyle. To them, their world is falling apart.
We should make some videos on side hustles they could do.
I think a lot of them are already YouTubers.
There you go. Oh, yeah. And if they do crash videos, that's a perfect side hustle.
It really is.
If you're working in an industry that gets destroyed because housing transactions crash by 50%, which they are,
right?
And prices didn't come down like you keep telling everybody they're going to for 2 years, you might want to make some YouTube money.
I totally agree. This one really speaks out to me. Ashley A, thank you so much for commenting. So, Ashley, I just saw the healthcare thing, and so that's where my wife. That's what my wife is, and my wife is a nurse. I work in healthcare as well. I know, for those of you who don't know, I still have a 40 to 50 hour a week job. But Ashley says, my coworkers in healthcare are getting assaulted more nowadays than ever by patients and families visiting the hospital without ramifications. I understand, and sadly, I know all too well what you're talking about. This is my motivation to buy rentals and get out of healthcare. And Ashley, I will tell you this, that makes me sad because you're probably a great nurse, and we need more great nurses. And people need to understand it's a stressful time for you, and you're going and visiting family, and you might not be getting the answers that you want. Know that all of these hospitals are understaffed. Know that all of these nurses and doctors are working ragged edge hours because they made a lot of policies that really shrunk their user pool or their employee pool. So what I will tell you is my wife went through exactly the same thing, and we had to come down and sit and make the decision. And it just says, we got to a point where we just said, we need to make a change. And so we completely understand that. Ashley, I'm thrilled that you're taking those steps. Recognize that the first 5 years probably suck. Hopefully it's turned around by then, but that time that you'll invest will never, ever, ever return void. That will be knowledge, expertise, and understanding that you will have that 95% of the market doesn't have, that will put you in a better place to make better financial decisions for yourself and for your future. And Laura, thank you for that comment about the $150 extra. It was on the market for 2 days. Why wasn't it only 1 day? If it were still a hot market, it would have rented in 1 day.
Exactly.
And here's the issue, Dion.
It
it took twice as long for it to rent this time as it did last time.
if you've watched Black Adam, this is where we have to say that was sarcasm.
Yeah. So really interesting thing is when I was having a conversation with somebody and I was trying to make a point, okay, I actually told them that my non-paying renters is up 300%. I went from 1 to 3. That's out of 135. There's not a landlord on this planet that wouldn't take those numbers of people that were late on payment. And the people that were late, we've already been in contact with them. We're working with them as best we can. We just said, listen, if we can't come to an agreement, we understand, but just know that this is our only other option. We're just very honest with people. We're not trying to beat them over the head with it. We're just saying, we want to work something out with you because of this. However, if we can't, just know that this is our only other option. And we can't, the option isn't us not get paid. That's not an option. So the option is either you or somebody else is going to pay. Dan, any thoughts on that?
Well, I think here, Dividend Dave.
Oh, there we go. Dividend Dave.
So that you can have a night out, and he knows your exact budget. He sent $1.99 because you love the dollar value meal. So you can go get your sandwich, but with inflation, the $1.99 covers it. So perfect amount.
Dave, thank you. I appreciate that because that is actually enough for a night out for me. It really actually is.
Exactly. It's like I said, it's the perfect amount.
Yeah, you nailed it. And Ashley, you're very welcome. I completely understand where you're coming from. My wife has a ton of nursing friends, a ton of them. And you know, it's a sisterhood. You guys stick together. And I hate how you guys are largely being treated. And stay strong. People are just frustrated, and I get it. They take it out on you. But I know that being married to a nurse and knowing all of her friends, I see them. I saw what the last 2 years did to them. It was really, really hard. And most hospitals did not make it easier. They made it tougher on them. So we appreciate you guys in the trenches very, very much. Laura, I was affected by both hurricanes. I did all the yard cleaning, can't find any type of workers. Yep. But the economy is crashing. Can't find workers, but the economy is crashing. Here's the interesting thing, Laura. You will start to see a lot more workers because these housing programs that were paying their rents are going away. They're not going to have any choice but to work. Miraculously, good news, everybody. I contributed 4 new employees to the market in just this last 2 weeks. Do you know how I did that? It was 2 rental units that came off of federally assisted funding. All 4 of the adults in the house got jobs. It was a miracle. It's going to happen. It's the transition. It's just math. And these are things that real estate agents and mortgage brokers and bankers largely don't understand because they're not in it, living it. They're only going based on some report that they read. That's the information that they're then gleaning from a report that makes them think that they're experts. You don't understand, it's happening here. Real quick question. When Ian devastated Florida. Did it affect the weather in 43 other states? And yes, I know there are 50. But in 43 other states, was the weather affected one bit? Did you get one more drop of rain? Did you get one fewer degree? Did you get one higher degree? Did you get more snow or less snow? It didn't impact 43 or 44 other states. It's the same thing with real estate. There are a stack of markets. What's happening in Las Vegas right now doesn't matter. What happened in Las Vegas in 2008 when things went down 75%, guess how much my market went down? 20. Do you think I'm worried that Vegas is going to go down another 75 again? I'm not. I hope it does. I'll buy a house there. But my market only went down 20. Look at your own market. Become an expert in your own market. These national numbers are largely what these guys talk about, but that they pick out the ones that are really a big issue because it's so concentrated and it gives them a narrative. Whatever. It doesn't make it true for your market, but you're an idiot for investing in one of the 300 markets that's completely, largely not affected. Dion, thoughts?
So, and the problem there is they can't differentiate the people who talk about the crash, how it doesn't matter to a buy and hold investor.
It doesn't.
They're like, the worst situation you could be in is to buy a property and then next month it's worth less. And who cares?
Doesn't matter.
They're trying to argue a point that's not worth defending because it doesn't matter. Like I would like the properties that I own to go down in value too. So I could buy other ones because properties going down in value doesn't make rents go down.
Nope. Real quick, I want to share my board of truth. Not the sword of truth, but the board of truth. The board of truth is you guys want to make all these arguments about pricing. So this was 6.7. This was as of 10/22, so about a month ago. 430K was on the estimated median home price. So 430 at a 6.7 is a 2,774 payment. They're talking nothing but smack about the fact it's going to be back to 2019 levels. Oh yeah? Or 2020 levels. Look at this. 2.65 mortgage on a 369 house. The payment was $1,486. You let me know when we're back down to a $1,486 house payment on the median home price. That's the measurement. That's what no one's talking about. The measurement is apples to apples. Tell me the median home price. Look at what the interest rate is. Tell me what your payment was. All through 2020, all through 2021, me, Dion, Zoob, Millennial Mike, one person, Anna Kelly, all these people are telling you it's a great time to buy. It's a great time to buy. It's a great time to buy. Crush, crush, crush. You don't understand. Crush, crush, crush. It's coming. Crush, crush, crush. You missed on appreciation from 337 to 430. About 30% appreciation. Here's the thing you missed out on more. This payment, 1433, 1486. Now it's 2774.
Tilt it a little so they could see without the glare. There you go.
Better?
Kinda, yeah.
Here,
Good.
I'll replace my face.
They could pause the video and come back. Right, that was perfect. Like get focused and everything. Good.
These are the numbers, guys. This is the baloney that these clowns are talking about on their crash channels. Talk to me. I don't want to hear about the price. I want to hear about your payment. 1433 in 7 of 20. In 1 of 21, your payment was 1486. Don't talk to me about the price of the house. I want to know about the payment. You waited and your payment doubled. You waited and your payment doubled. That's just math. Here it is right here. So even when rates come down, even when pricing comes down, even when the economy's in recession, you think you're getting anywhere near 1433 or 1486?
One thing I talked about in a video that came out, I think yesterday, or was it today? No, it was yesterday. The days all blend together. Was Zuber said this perfect in one of his updates, like it was in his brilliance, right? The way he talks.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say the Fed can get inflation down to 2%, like their target is 2 to 3%. Let's say magically, poof, they figure out the metric that takes it from 7.7 down to 2%. We get there. So everyone's like, okay, great. Now inflation's less. Now I can go buy my house and it'll be less.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not how it works. It'll still be 2% more than it is now. Right. Inflation coming down just means things went up less. It doesn't mean they came down. Negative inflation is possible.
Yeah.
I don't know that we've seen it in too many things other than maybe electronics.
Yep.
right?
You can only have, my tenants can only have 5 flat panel TVs in their house, in their 3-bedroom, only 5.
How many of their brand new car can haul at a time to the place too? I mean, I have that. I have somebody in, they might watch this channel, talk to me about problems paying rent. I mean, they've never been later. They were the one I talked to like last month, a brand new car. But they were like, hey, you know, what would happen if we paid rent late? I said 2 things. One, I serve an eviction notice, because if you need to qualify for assistance, that's going to be the thing that helps you. And 2, I screw you over, because normally a renter has 4 weeks to have the money ready for next month. And I'm taking away a week, giving you only 3 weeks to be ready for next month. So if you want to have this conversation, those are the 2 things that would happen. And then they just paid their rent. But it's like you said, how many brand new TVs, brand new cars, and then the rent is the first, here's the thing, here's a gem. If you have a pen and paper, if you are a mom and pop landlord and they see that you self-manage and you don't have the name, you sometimes look like a target. Yeah. If they find your rental on apartments.com or Zillow or all the platforms that Hemlane uses, they're specifically looking for somebody sometimes who's not using a property manager because they think you're going to be a pushover. It's not to rip you off. It's because they think you wouldn't have a backbone. So if you don't have a backbone, good time to have a property manager.
Agreed. Yeah, if you're, I think that Dion really, I think you underscore a really perfect point there, which is, I've been told that I'm good with people sometimes. So sometimes, and that's true. If you're being respectful, if we're working together and we're trying to find a common solution, I am a sweetheart. If you're an idiot, I can out idiot you any day. So that's the issue, is that we want to continue to work on that stuff together. But the thing that Dion says is really, really true. If this is not a skill set of yours and you feel like every time you talk to a tenant, you're losing, you need to recognize that you're choosing the tenant over your family. And that is always a losing situation every time. So if you really struggle with those things, you either need to get better at them and purpose yourself at getting better at them, or you do need to look for a property manager potentially. Let's see. I saw one real quick from Tennessee Tweety. Tennessee Tweety, thanks for watching us on your lunch break. I appreciate that very much. Dion does too. William Robinson. Hi, William Robinson. I think I saw you on the live stream with my good buddy Simon at Uneducated Economist. Do either of you guys rent out to student populations? If so, what has your experience been? All right, I'm going to give you a little bit of a cheat on the coming course. I do an entire section on student housing. It's what made me rich. It's that simple. The cool thing is that I do something that one of the secrets is I don't have college kids get a cosigner. I don't, because you know what? I don't want to deal with Johnny's mommy. I don't want to deal with what overstimulated situation he might have had in the house when he couldn't get into the shower when he wanted to. Don't care. That's up to them to figure out, not up to me. So I don't do a cosigner. And do you know how many times I've gotten stiffed on a bill in 22 years and probably, I don't know, $10 million worth of rentals? I've been stiffed this many times. 0. Because they actually are in a position where they can fear having to go to court, where they can respect that they are not doing what they were told to do and that they're going to go to court and they're going to see a judge that day. It's a respect of the system and recognize that they have to do their part. So I think it's really, really important. I think it's really valuable. Yeah, so William, absolutely. The one thing that you really want to watch out for, really, quite frankly, is not having one person come in and then say, I'm going to find roommates. It's finding friends that have been together before. They roomed together last year. It might be 2 sets of 2 that roomed together last year, and now the 4 of them are going to come together and room together that way. But that's all the stuff that I'm going to cover in my course when it comes to how to effectively do student housing, because you do get paid a premium. Because William, many, many, many people believe that their experience is going to be horrible, because that's what a bunch of people on YouTube say. Dion?
So I don't rent to a student population. To answer that question, I have one rental that is roommates. that are, some of them were students that have gotten jobs. I rented with one lease, all names on the lease, so I didn't rent each room out. The one thing I do know about it is during the pandemic, when they were doing a lot of homeschooling and not in-person training, not homeschooling, but not in-person training. I have a friend in Bellingham, Washington. That's all he does is student loans. Never had a vacancy. He said the students still wanted the college experience of being away from home. Didn't have to lower rents, stayed booked. So even if it's a strategy that continues to work during a pandemic, when people can't go to college in person, I would totally do it.
Yeah. Sierra, love what your comment says. In college, our townhouse allowed us to pay summer storage rent, like $200 off of regular rent for 2 months. And it was an awesome setup. We could leave everything there and come back in the fall. See, and this is the thing. Sierra said, yeah, that solution works for me. The landlord said, I'm not incurring any other expenses. I'm not incurring water fees, sewer fees, any other fees. So you know what? I'm just going to take that. I'm going to give it back to the tenants. They're happy. I'm happy. What's really interesting is, actually, I can't share that. It's unbelievable, but this one piece of information that I will show you guys how to get student rentals, it's life-changing. I built my entire business around it and it was an absolute crush. And no, I'm not sharing it no matter how much anybody begs. William Robinson, thanks. Live in a college town with about 10,000 students, bought my 3-bed, 2-bath in May of 22. William, I would dare say that my course will have a 10-fold return on its investment for you specifically. People that invest anywhere near an institution that has, I can't share that. I will share that. Anybody that lives near a college institution that houses less than 60% of their students has a massive opportunity on their hands. Massive. That is how I got wealthy. Not even just rich. Well, I don't know. No, maybe just rich. Laura Samaniego, while West Coast Florida was devastated and flooded, people in South Florida were scuba, snorkeling, and going on cruises. This is what I'm talking about, Laura. Your state wasn't even fully affected. It was an area, which is what blows my mind that people go, so crazy. Paul Jensen, Lumberjack 0 is amazing. I had to learn from a few bad experiences. I'm at 0 for the last 3 years of the 14.5 years that I've been a LL. Something landlord? Lumberjack landlord? Paul, give me more data, my man. Evicting sucks. I have a way of communicating to a tenant that I've developed to make it less painful. 100% agree. Negative trending inflation, disinflation. RE3, we do count on you for that really smart stuff during these live streams, so I appreciate you. REI Stoners, Ola, how are you? All-nighter hider, negative inflation is deflation. Yep. Yeah, and I think it's interesting because I'm not seeing it. I'm thinking about some of the colleges in the area now. One is a Big Ten school. Chester, I'm telling you, if people, I could sell that piece of my course for crazy, ridiculous money, but I want to put it all in this all-encompassing course that really, the working title, oh shit, I'm a landlord. Now what? Sorry for cursing. We're going to blur that out when we title it. All-nighter hider. I'm down the street from San Diego State University. Just based on appearance, I would not be excited to rent to any of the students I see, but so that's very true. However, that is the general feeling. Hider, you and I don't do feelings very well. That's the general feeling that many people have, and it's flawed because they haven't done the work. They heard a horror story. Oh, I rented to this blah, blah, blah college kid and they completely destroyed my house. It does happen. However, if it's never happened to me, and I've been doing this for 22 years, I've got not a foolproof way of making sure it will never happen to you, but certainly a drastically reduced risk profile of how it won't. Chester Williams, I love the title. See, everybody wants to fight me on the title. People love it. All my course people like, we can't call it that. And I was like, shut up. I was like, it says me. It's all about, it's really how I am. Oh shit, I'm a landlord, now what? That's how we all end up, because when you close on that first deal, and then you're like going home, you're like, yeah, we own a rental property. Woo! What do we do now? We own a rental property. all of the systems, all of the process, all of the things that we did to build from 1 to 135, it's going to be in there.
That's one of those things too, where the experienced landlord doesn't even think of it. It's just second nature.
Correct.
Here are the things I do when I have a new tenant in place. Me and Millennial Mike did a live stream in Fresno in Verbo, where there was tips and tricks for the new landlord. And it was all the same questions that we had starting out. Like, so nothing's changed, no matter when you're starting investing. Where do you get your leases? How do you meet the tenants? How do you introduce yourself to the tenants? You know, landlord policies on utilities, like all the really basic stuff that once you've done it like twice, you don't even think about it.
Yeah.
But it's huge before that.
It is. It's huge before that. But then there's the pieces of how to fix things, what to fix, the way to fix. It's all of those like things that you should be doing on your own. Because I bought this one tool and I looked at this one tool and I was like, man, alive, $600 and it's a used tool. And I was like, that is so much money. And you know what ended up happening? The very next time that so I didn't buy it. My bad. I didn't buy it. I had to make one phone call about 3 months later. The one repair was $675 and I wanted to pull my hair out. I looked like Dion after I finished evaluating this.
I felt silly one time when I called a handyman and I said, look, I've got this clog and it seems to be a weird elbow in this thing. And he's done a lot of drainage repair for me before. And he says, I know exactly what's wrong, but I don't have the right snake. And he said the snake was like $320.
Yep.
And I don't know what was happening, but he said, but if you buy it for me, I will just do the job. Now that you want me to buy you're running a business, you want me to buy your tool, that's stupid, but I bought it and he's used it several times.
Yes.
Right.
I literally waited. It took me another year to find one, but I found it. I bought it. And every single time, so Dion's thing is every single time the bell rings, someone retires before Matt or an angel gets its wings. Mine is every single time that tool is used, we buy another angel because it saves us that literally every time we use it, it saves us that expense. That one machine in 2 years has saved us just under $8,000. One machine. So I would say it doesn't matter if you spend $600 on that and your portfolio's a tenth the size of mine, it would have still paid for itself. And every time you use it thereafter, it's free. Ashley, I see that you put something in there. Seeing a duplex tomorrow, landlord pays electric heat for Section 8. They can't seem to tell me previous winter electric bills. Should I push it before submitting an offer so I know what the numbers are? Yeah, you really do need to know what the numbers are. Dion, what are your thoughts there?
Contact the utility company and ask for average use in the area, because it's not going to be based on what that tenant does. You can have turnover if you have a problem tenant, but what is average use in that area for something of that size?
Yep.
Just like we go off area average rents, not what they say they should be, not what the leases say they should be, not what their proven deposit slips say they should be, but what are area average rents? What are area average utility costs?
I would also just make it a condition of the P&S. You're in a better market now for being a buyer. I would just put in the P&S with, just review of previous annual electricity usage or utility uses. DT wouldn't give you that info. Yeah, I figured they wouldn't. The only thing that they can give you is area market average. So you can call and ask area market average. However, I've had units that were 2x the area market average. So I would strongly just put that in a P&S, make sure it's part of your terms. Just like you would a home inspection, you're going to want to see the previous year of those. That's what I would do if I were in your shoes. Good deal.
All-nighter hider, your question here. I've never had a student loan. Do they really loan that much to pay for cost of living? Seems like debt slavery to me. Here's the problem with FAFSA loans. A lot of people go, the cost of college has gone astronomical because the government said, we will back the loan no matter what you charge. So they could charge whatever they want.
That's right.
That's not where all the student debt comes from. The student debt comes from because literally people with families can say, I have this many dependents in my family. Here's how much I want to borrow for living and pay for school. That all becomes unforgivable student debt. It's like the worst kind of debt that there is. And it's not based on the cost of the college. It's how long did they go to school and how much do they want to borrow to live?
That's right.
It's crazy.
It is. It's the reason that colleges largely can raise the rate 8 to 13% a year is because they know that that's not going to get shut off. They know that people going to get those loans is not going to get shut off. Want to slow down the cost of education? Reduce it.
Or maybe educate people on the lack of benefit of having that education. But
I'm a 9th grade dropout. I can't talk about that stuff.
I stopped putting an effort in 9th grade. Does that count?
In my book, it does. I was sans effort after 9th grade. Paul Jensen, yeah. So Dion, just to answer you, I do. So I appreciate the enthusiasm of $150. I will not tell my wife; she might scream. But right now we're at 130. We are 130. We actually just went to 137. We closed on a duplex. Which we are sending out our love note this week, introducing ourselves. And yes, that's part of my course as well. All-nighter hider. So yes, the subsidy thing on college debt, it's living costs are in there as well. And so you can actually, that's also what pumps it up. The other thing to do is, like I said, in my course, I break it down step by step by step, exactly what they're paying for. And you will see it's in the numbers, and I'm a math guy. It's all in the numbers. That's what I sat down. I figured out very early on. That is how I built my empire as quickly as I did, was house hacking. I lived on the other side of a duplex or triplex with students in the building, with other students in the building. I lived in that situation for 13 years. 13. That's right. So I love it when people say it was easy. I just missed that part.
So Paul says he has a 10th, which is a massive accomplishment.
It is. It's huge. That's enough to retire.
In the one rental at a time community, we talk about get to 4. It's life changing. At 4 units, the rest of your life will be different than what it would be without any rentals. And I know that sounds silly, but that's the number where appreciation, pay down, time, rent increases, mortgages staying the same, have a massive impact on people's lives.
Yeah.
So when it comes to things like making a YouTube video, I'm still small enough. I'll share numbers. Yeah. Matt and Zuber don't share numbers because it seems unattainable. Like it's, it's not relatable, but getting to 4 is, and if we can get people there. So if you're at a 10th of 135, you're killing it.
You're crushing it. I'm telling you.
Not my goal. I wouldn't want as many units as you have. Like, I don't even think I want as many as I have now. So
in all honesty, I don't think I want as many as I have. It's really true. Like, we're not growing an empire. Truly what the idea and the design of this was one thing. Every deal, do a great deal. That's it. That was the only goal, was do a great deal. That's it. Do a great deal. And so we've done 60 something great deals. That's how we got here. Over 22 years, we've done something like 60 something great deals. So we've done a lot more in the last couple of years. Millions.
I've done 7 deals. 5 were average, 2 were great. And I reached financial freedom. The base hits get the RBIs. Add time, time's the missing element. I don't have the skill set that you and Zuber do of recycling capital, 1031s, cashing out, timing what asset class to go for. I'm just like dumb worker guy raising kids. I could buy a rental. I can house hack twice. Like, I've only house hacked twice. And now I make 4 times what I made ever in my life, except for the last 2 years. I match what I made the last 2 years off of just 7 deals. Yeah. Like, that's why I like what you and Zuber do is you talk about the beginning. How do you get started? What is house hacking? You don't go, well, it really sucks until you break that 100 unit mark. Once you get there, yeah, you might be able to, go buy the fancy toy or whatever. It's literally life-changing all the way. And then you guys have something that I don't have, that super motivated, grow a machine. You called it not a kingdom, it was something else. Your empire.
Enterprise.
You have an empire. I have enough. Like, the money is piling up, and now I'm probably going to buy another property. It just makes sense to, right? But you don't need to, right?
Nope.
So if Paul's got a 10th of yours, awesome.
Yeah, the money stacks, and the more, the better, in my eyes. But
it's a weird feeling, though.
What it is, dude? It's
having money.
No, dude, it's a totally weird feeling. I mean, you grow up with no money. I grew up with very little money. you know, I mean, enough that I think a nickel had a friend, you know, but it was not pretty.
The day I felt successful, like, oh my God, I'm rich, was I could take my kids to a restaurant and get this, I could order a soda, like at a restaurant, not
Yeah.
just drink water with my meal. And I'd have enough money. That was when I was like, oh, wow, I have so much money. And now I don't know that I've looked at the price on a menu for 3 or 4 years.
I'm so
And I used to go, look, which appetizer will get me through this meal with these people I probably don't even like that I'm here with, right? And now it's, don't even think about it. And 7 deals to get there. It doesn't take a lot. So I'm hoping that there are people out there, some who are lazy, who don't want 135 units, that can change their life and literally go from rolling coins to have enough money to take the kids to go watch a movie.
Yeah.
To money to, I think in the last couple of weeks, I've said this more than any time in my life. Money is not even real.
It's not.
As soon as you realize it's not real, you have more than you'll ever know what to do with.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, for us, we waited because we waited to have kids. Because I was in my late 20s, my wife was in her early 20s when we got married. She then finished school and then got her nurse. I said, what do you want to do? And she's like, I really want to be a nurse. And I was like, then that's what you get to do. So we did the schooling, or she did the schooling and all that other stuff. And I just said, hey, we'll just manage the small portfolio we had. At that time, that small portfolio was maybe 15 units or so. And then but then we kept on doing the work, kept on learning, kept on understanding better the rules of the game, how to do it, how to expand, how to keep our costs low, all that other fun stuff. Like truly my moment was not ordering off the dollar menu, but ordering a actual value meal. So I wasn't off. I wasn't.
Let me know if I'm off on this.
Yeah,
I think
please.
this has got to be cool for Ashley.
Yeah.
So she worked in healthcare,
Yeah.
got the degree, went to school, and she had the job. Now she's the real estate professional, managing your properties and everything. So she's did what she wanted and realized this is a better life, right? More time with the kids, all that kind of stuff. When she was working in that field, she probably worked around other healthcare professionals who were talking about their spouses, whether it was a male nurse or a female nurse. They're talking about their spouses and what they've done. So if you work in the healthcare, a lot of them, for some reason, date people with law enforcement because they interact a lot. But most people with degrees tend to be married to somebody with a degree. There's some mental thing that you judge people based on what they've accomplished in life. And I'm not saying everybody, I'm just saying some people.
Understood.
For her to get the ability to go, when someone brings up, oh yeah, my spouse has a business degree and does this for PayPal, runs a department or whatever, and she can go, no, my husband didn't even go to high school, and be proud of it because of how successful you guys are. Like that had to be killer.
I think it was, I'll ask her, but I know that I found this book maybe just a couple, or I heard about this book just a couple of years ago. It was that Millionaire Next Door type of thing. So you guys will get to see, I'm going to do some live streams next week because I took vacation just to do some live streams next week for folks. You're going to get to see the hoopty that I drive. I bought this truck and I will show it to you. I bought this truck, and the truck that I drive, I bought it for $1,000, and I bought it for $1,000 because FU, the full word, was carved into the door. I watched some YouTube videos and I sanded it down and I repainted it so I could get rid of the 2 words. Yeah, I'm broken. I get it. But that's why for me, it's really all about investing your time in things that are worth investing your time in, and recognizing that my time has a cost. I'm still broken in the way where I will still do something like that. Could I go write a check for any car I want? Yeah, I could, but I didn't. And it's that mindset that will have you become a great landlord, because you need to be looking at things through the eyes of, I want to do it. I want to do it right. But I also, that doesn't mean like, oh, well, you just need to replace the whole thing. Like a roof. Somebody's like, yeah, in the next 5 years, your roof is going to go. Well, I'm going to not start the clock ticking on the new roof. I'm going to let this one go another 2 or 3 years, make sure I'm good, but knowingly save and set aside for it. That way in 2 or 3 years, if it does go, I can pay cash for it. If I get another 5 out of it, awesome. I'll replace it then. That's one of the opportunities that you guys have. Let's see. Oh, the gecko. Oh, wow. That's funny. Financial firefighter. I think you just found the only thing wrong with living in Hawaii. A gecko crawled into his AC and died. You got a million watching from East Africa. Very cool. Love that. Thank you so much for coming and hanging out. JP, I saw your question. 4 units with what kind of profit? It's not 4 units, it's 4 buildings. If you look at my 4-3-2-1 strategy, it's a quadplex, a triplex, a duplex, and then a single family home. It's a very easy strategy to follow. Conceptually, it's work to get it done and do it. But if you do that process, likely within 10 years, you're probably $1 million.
So the 4 isn't so much like, here's a strategy, you have to get these 4. When I got to 4, I had a single family house and 3 duplexes, was house hacking and had more passive cash flow coming in, according to the IRS cash flow, more than when I was a police officer. So basically doubling what I would have made had I gone back to law enforcement. That would be life-changing. Zuber's point is he was working on retirement. He was saving for retirement. And he thought, if I have 4 rentals that cash flow this much every month, my retirement will be better. So we picked 4 because it's attainable. And once you have 4, you will learn the strategy that works in your market.
Right.
And then you can choose. You could just lean fi, not do anything else, work till 65 like everybody else, but if you buy them in your 30s, they'll be paid off and you'll have the better retirement. Or you could figure out, I have 4. If you do the 4-3-2-1 method, you now have 10 units. With me, I had 7 units because it was a house and then 3 duplexes. So there's a lot more cash flow. Cash flow increases through the years. Most people aren't going to get to 4 and then stop. Like, that's not what we're saying. We're not saying get to 4 and then you're good. Right. But if we can focus on getting you to 4, so many options are going to open up that's about the point where the student becomes the master. You now know your situation and your market, your resources and your goals better than any of the 3 amigos or the REI Avengers are going to be able to help you. But we got to get you to that point.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's, the other thing too is that in 4, or, even in that journey to getting to 4, you're going to understand, do you like this or not? Does this fit you or not? Is this something that you want to pursue or not? And it might not be. Maybe you want to trade crypto. And I'm not mocking it because crypto's down like to a fraction. I'm literally saying maybe that's what fits you and your personality better. It's fine. Real estate investing isn't for everybody, but it's puts you on a path where if you're house hacking, when you move out of that, and then you have 2 tenants that are living in there, and then you're the landlord of that, and you're no longer there, you start to see, this is something I like. Is this something I can live with? Yes, it's absolutely going to be a sacrifice. Yes, you give up some of your time, but where else would your time be better invested that you're going to get a greater return? And I asked a fairly smart question as far as I'm concerned. I asked a fairly smart question when I was in my teenage years. I talked to a couple of financial advisors and I just asked them, I said, so of all of your tenants, or excuse me, of all of your customers, where do the lion's share of them make the most money? And the answer was real estate, real estate, real estate. Every single one of them, it was real estate. They said real estate or own your own business, but recognize that the first 10 to 20 years of owning your own business is going to suck and you're not going to have much of a life.
So for the last 10 years I ran, or 13 years, I ran the CDL school. We did a lot of work on the base. Like we were the veteran, I was in the Marines, the owner was in the Navy. We're 70% military staffed or veteran staffed. We were on base often trying to help people transition, go through the Soldier for Life transition assistance program to get out and get a second career going. And the first thing almost every service member learned was you get told you're going to get a pension in 20 years. You stay in the military for 20 years, you get a pension. Sounds great. Enlisted at 18, get out at 38, you got money, you might retire, you might work again, get a second pension. They don't tell you is you can't touch your pension until you're 55. Right?
It's
There's like a gap in there. But working in the, what do they call it, the Hawk Center, where the transition assistant program happened, you would have all of these officers who get hoodwinked by companies that want you to be a financial advisor. So they take in officers who are getting out and they bring them in and they say, okay, you're going to be a financial advisor, not a fiduciary, an advisor. This was like 2 or 3 years ago, they changed it to where to use the term financial advisor, you had to have a license, have a fiduciary responsibility to your clients. And I mean, they're trying to clean up the industry. But these guys would always go to the new soldiers getting out and say, here's how you're going to invest. Like, this is an officer that's never invested. They've just been sucked into this company that's going to teach you how to invest, teach people how to invest. They've never invested. Every single time they would come to me and they would go, okay, so you're a veteran, you're already out, you have a job, you're my target rich environment. And within the first couple of minutes, they would go, so, what do you do with your money since you didn't stay in long enough to get a pension? What are you doing? You've got to invest, right? And I said, yeah, I buy rentals. Conversation over. They couldn't make a penny. The financial advisors make money by directing your money into funds that they get money from. Mm-hmm. But if you have rentals, there isn't as much of a model unless it's a fee-based where you're paying them every year to give you a review of your portfolio or whatever. But they were the ones that were trying to get you into their system to make money off of their investing thing. It always frustrated me because I couldn't be everywhere. The people around me I could educate, but the hundreds and the hundreds that they would talk to, there would be some, enlisted person getting out that would just go, oh, I have a TSP. I don't even know what this is, like a 401k for the military. I don't know what to do with it. So I'll just give it to you. Because the people making money off of those accounts were the ones running them, not the ones putting money into them.
It's true. Oh, I actually asked my most recent financial or current, I will say, financial advisor. He's a landlord too. He actually, so he kind of handles the insurances and the my real company 401k, and he handled, and here you go, do your thing with it. And he always asks me, so, hey, how's the real estate business? It's like, it's awesome. He owns, I think, 3 or 4 rentals. He loves it. He loves it. Every single time he's like, yeah, just wanted to set up a meeting. I was like, yeah, what do you need to cover? He goes, we'll just had some questions on some real estate stuff. So Matt, this course is actually mostly for you. So you stop calling me and asking me. This is for him. All-nighter header. My original boss that taught me construction is still a friend and told me if I want to be successful, to surround myself with successful people. He was right. It's very true. It's 100% true. You got to, why do you
think I'm here?
Why do you think I'm here?
Exactly.
This is the best part. Like when I talked to Mike and I saw that he was doing with, other experts in the field, my game has gotten better. I admittedly had outgrown pretty much everybody else around me. Do I need to take advice from some pinhead real estate agent or some mortgage broker? Do I really need to take advice from them? The only advice I want from them is, what is my best option for how I'm doing this? What's my best option? Hey, there's Sachs Realty. Hey, guys.
Give him a shout out. Explain to people who that is in case they haven't heard.
I want to make sure you guys do know who Sachs Realty is. So Todd is spectacular. You've got to check out his channel. Here's what I love about Todd. You guys know that I say 80% of realtors are completely useless. 15% are pretty good. 5% are elite. Todd is one of the elite. He will make a difference in what you're listening to here. And here's why. He was in construction in the 80s and early 90s. He got into real estate investing as well. He is a landlord, owns a bunch of property, helps younger landlords get started in the mid-Atlantic area, basically around Baltimore, I believe, around that area. And Todd and his staff are absolutely spectacular. So watch his live streams. I appreciate the $10, Sachs Realty. You're awesome. Love working with you guys.
It's cool to see him here. So I talked earlier at the beginning of the video that there's a couple of YouTube channels done by agents. Yeah. Javier in Arizona, and I watch it, but I have to take Javier with a grain of salt. This is an agent, not an investor. So I'm literally listening to what are home buyers hearing. But Sachs, that's the channel I sit back and I go, okay, I could take the agent thing out, except that he has the industry knowledge of that. But this is an investor sharing investing knowledge. So one of my favorite channels.
Yeah, Sachs is awesome. Todd is fantastic. And honestly, he's Shadow Stevens. For those of you kids who grew up in the 80s and the 90s, he's got the Shadow Stevens voice. He doesn't sound like a chipmunk on helium like I do when I talk. So he's really great to listen to and valuable information. But I think he does a better job of interpreting things that he's seeing, but he's there daily. He's in the market daily, and he's working with other investors daily. So he can give you the heartbeat of his market and what's going on there. And that's what we're always looking for. We're always looking for the heartbeat of the market that we're in. So Mid-Atlantic, Maryland, Todd and team, you guys are awesome. Appreciate you guys. Thanks for the super chat. And happy Thanksgiving. James J. Is a PM managed OOS property with a 10% yield and a C plus B minus possible in the current market? I've been searching landlord friendly states and haven't been successful. Thanks, guys. James J. Most seem to be in D class tenant friendly states that will potentially destroy cash flow with evictions and turnover costs. So I don't buy D. Where's Dion? Where you going, buddy? Outside. Wow, what a
I heard bears. I was like, I want to come out here and see if they're still here.
Hey, everybody. Hey, Dion, I'll super chat you $10 in your next live stream if you get eaten by a bear for us.
Nice. Does anybody know how to call a bear? How do you call a bear?
I think you go, dinner.
Dinner.
A tasty morsel.
Exactly.
So real quickly, James J, welcome to the channel. Happy to have you here. I don't do D class anything. D class, I'm not a fan of. Don't do Ds. I only do Bs and Cs. Property management, I don't do a property manager, but it's because I teach how to be your own property manager and how to align your, what we call human assets to manage to get you that kind of return. You are correct. Dion has a better story on D class than I do. Dion, you got a street that people know about? Talk to folks about that. That'll help them.
So if you knew it was D class, I would probably avoid, but if it's C class, that's primarily where I invest. I don't want to be an A or B or D. And in my area, D class is heavily public transit area. And in that area, there's a lot of homeless that use the public transit to stay warm. So I wouldn't want to own a property there. It's very high turnover because people don't want to live around it. So know your area. That's why Zuber says, learn one, maybe two markets. But if you're learning 3 or 4, you'll never know the nuanced little areas that you have to avoid. If the police can't go there alone, you don't want to own there. And sometimes talk to an officer in the area.
Yes.
Where's the area to avoid? And I could tell you that there's a town. I won't name the town. I'll just name the address. 301 T Street. If you Google 301 T Street in all the towns in Washington, you'll find a couple that you can't go to. Not safely. So how many of those can there possibly be? But that's an area where the officers have to go is in teams. I would avoid D because if you can't safely go collect your rents, would you want to send a property manager there? Would you feel comfortable with if something happens to your repair person that goes there for something? So I don't want to be involved in that. I stay away from class A and B because while rents have never gone down once since we've started tracking the data, the one time that it looked like it did was 2009 when A class markets downgraded to Bs and Cs. So those rents dropped, not enough to make the market drop as a whole, but that one class did. So that's actual empirical evidence that in economic distress, people will go from A to B to C, not to D. Maybe before D, they'd go to a mobile home park, right? Like that's the stage where there are some that are class C, probably even some that are better, right? I prefer class C. You get working class. You get generally mortgages as you're starting out that you can handle with your wage. If you ever have a gap month, you can save the reserves for that. Whereas if you're making 6 figures, sure, maybe you could save the reserves for a B, but I wasn't. Most of my career, I made less than $50,000 until the last 2 or 3 years. In times when stress, the depression, the recession, there is more demand for C rentals. And that's what I want. Yes, I might have a tenant not working, but if the tenant goes through an eviction and moves out, there's a ton of demand for that unit. So at a distance, C, yes. If you're getting a yield like that, absolutely. But what's average for that area? If I went to where Matt lives and I said, oh, I found a deal, it's getting me a 10% yield. And he's like, well, it's right next to the one where I got a 25. So I'm going to get 10. I wouldn't feel too bad. You're not losing money, but I didn't know the market. And so if you contact an area and you say, I'm an out-of-state investor, I've got California money, so it feels like a great deal. They're going to have the best deal ever for you that all of the local investors passed on for a good reason.
Yeah, that's very true. James J, thank you very much for the 199 super chat. We're happy to share our knowledge with you. That's why we're here. We just share our experiences. One of the things that I will tell you is, yes, A's did go down in the last recession, but guess where they went? B's. So that's why I like B's. I like when they can down select to me. People that are in C's aren't going to D's. people that are in A's will go to B's, but they won't go to C's, and C's are good and content, and they'll wait it out and get up to a B when they're ready, but a B will go down to a C. So that's why I love that. I always like to call it the meat of the sandwich. Not concerned with the top of the bun, not concerned with the bottom bun. I just want the meat in the middle, which is B's and C's. That's where I live my life, is B's and C's. So that's the best place to be. Tennessee Tweety. Hey guys, do you have thoughts on investing in STRs or using the midterm rental approach? Here's what I will say. I have done midterms. I haven't done short terms. I didn't like midterms because it was too lumpy. I was doing outsource for nursing. I think it was more based on the hospitals that we were servicing, because every 90 days or every 180 days, they seemingly had another company that they were using. And it was like it was like Groundhog Day. It was starting the process all over again. Major nightmare. And on the midterm rentals, I was making only slightly less on the longer term rentals. And I didn't have nearly the amount of like maintenance guy in a hotel moments. You know, longer term is much more self-sufficient. Midterm usually isn't. Short term certainly isn't. And so if you're doing those things, you really just want to make sure that there's pretty significant, massive margins there. I can't give you any more guidance than that because I don't do STRs, because I like a longer, more boring. I am the, just slow and steady wins the race. Really, really boring, meat and potatoes, nothing sexy. But what's the only thing that's sexy about the strategy is the racks that it makes. That's it. Dion?
Or boring is sexy, and it's hard to explain how time impacts it.
Yeah.
If somebody says, I'm buying a rental, it's gonna cash flow $400 a month, and I saved the down payment and I bought it. It was from the MLS. I got a regular mortgage. Like, the whole tone is just like, it was just a boring deal, right?
Yeah.
Flash forward, that duplex is making $1,100 a side, has zero issues, funds, like, that's the vehicle duplex now, yeah, it doesn't suck.
Yeah. And that's kind of it too, is the other thing that is tough too, is when you become a landlord, you are starting a business. You might be profitable, but you're going to reinvest a lot of those profits in that first asset. And that's good, but do the things that you have to do the things that are maintenance required, fix stuff. But also be looking at doing what you can. That's where my landlord series comes in with product reviews. I show you guys how to get the most out of redoing your units to get the highest rent possible based on the lowest based on the lowest expense. Because I have people around me that way overspend. They'll overspend $50,000 more with me to get an extra $150 a month of rent. Good luck on that path.
So 2 quick questions. One,
Yeah.
When we first started, you said you had a 10 o'clock. How's that looking?
Yes. So I have probably another, I was actually just checking that. I've got a 1:30 Eastern time. So I've got 32 minutes. I like 10 minutes to prepare. So we can go for another about 20 minutes or so.
Okay. I've cleared the morning, so I'm good for whatever works for you. And second, would everybody like a live stream like this next Friday?
Yeah, we could do that. That'd be fun.
I was thinking maybe we could bounce back and forth every other Friday, do one on each channel.
Yeah.
When you're available.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. But next Friday is Black Friday. So yes, Dion, I am a shopper on Black Friday.
You're going to go shopping?
Yes.
Nice.
On Black Friday, it is my retail version of a yard sale. I go.
Since I avoid people at all costs, I will be available for a live stream next week if people feel like this would be a good thing for a Friday.
We will do it. We will definitely. Yes, we will do it. I will be even more haggard than normal, but because I will be up super, super early. But yeah, we will definitely do it. Tennessee Tweety. Hopefully that answered your question on the long-term or the midterm, short-term stuff. Millennial Mike. Sorry. All-nighter hider. I thought was a considered logic. Give me a moment in this phone booth. I don't think there are any phone booths left. Mike, you would know that. Mike is a cop, so he would know that. Ashley, boring is sexy. My wife thinks so too. And ironically, my wife's name is Ashley. Ashley, every single time I see your name pop up on the screen, I'm just making sure it's not my wife trying to get a hold of me. Like, I've called your phone 7 times. Why aren't you picking up? It's not. Thank God. Chester Williams, Sachs Realty, closer to DC area, Prince George's. Okay, nice to see another fellow Marylander in the stream. Very cool. Yeah, Todd Sachs, awesome. I mean, again, guys, you want people that have been successful, he's been doing it for 30 plus years, guys. 30 plus years. I've been doing this for 22 years. Dia's been doing it for over a decade, but it's also having been successful at doing it. The number of people that follow others that have colossally failed at something, it blows my mind. It blows my mind. It's like, hi, I've run 3 businesses into the ground and bankrupt them all. Follow me. I know how to bankrupt a business.
I'm going to start a marriage counseling channel. People follow, fail. Absolutely, sign me up.
Yeah. 10 easy ways to blow up your marriage in less than 7 years. That's awesome. Monica, Dion, are you still meeting in a group here in California? Oh, very cool.
So the 1 or 2 people who offered to tried to do it Monday, and I ended up staying in Fresno on Monday. Everybody else said they had to work. So probably not this trip.
JP, what kind of cash flows are you guys looking for your first rental? JP, awesome question. It's not a dollar amount, it's a percentage. So as you can imagine, there's stuff all over the place, right? Give me just 1 second. Nope, not emergency. There are the numbers range all over the place. I have units that make $1,000 a month, where that might be 12%. I have units that make $1,500 a month, and that might be 30% return on my capital. So if you're, depending on what you're looking at, you're looking for a concept of yield, just like you would find in a savings bond or a checking account. You're looking for yield, your interest, your yield. And then from my perspective, I look for something called return on my capital. If I put $100,000 into the deal, I take out all of the expenses and maintenance and maintain and all of the everything. And then I make $12,000 on that $100,000 year 1. Then guess what? Then I made a 12% return. And then the next year, what usually happens is, even if rents are flat over a 10-year period, rents will go up, and they'll go up. Maybe it's 30%, maybe it's 18%, maybe it's 12, maybe it's 50. Maybe it's, I have some rents that have literally doubled from when I bought the property back in the mid 80s or mid 2000s, not mid 80s. I was 7. So, but in the mid 2000s, in that time, I've had literally the rents more than double. So the key to this is longevity. It's that term, and that's really a big piece of it.
So there's
okay.
2 things when it comes to how much are you trying to get per unit. The first is yield.
Yes.
And you want to learn yield for your area and make sure you're trying to find deals that beat that. That's the goal. The second thing is I have a minimum amount, because if you used a VA loan, 0 down, and wrap the closing costs up into the mortgage, you could buy a house for nothing. And let's say you made $1 in the next year. That's an infinite return. Right? Is that worth it? To manage a property, to take the risk, to even if it's a property manager, to manage the property manager. So I want to make about $100 a month per unit and have the yield be better than what is average for my area. So in my area, I was able to find 7 and 8s pretty normally up until probably last year. And so I shot for 10s, but it works in my area because it's expensive. So if you're investing in Gary, Indiana, and you buy a place for $18,000 and you can get a 10% return, you're making $180 a year or whatever, or is that 1,800 maybe, whatever the math is that worth managing a property, owning a property? Yeah. So 2 things I look at there.
Yeah. And so I don't hate single family, but Dan and I are from the same camp where they don't cash flow where we live. Single families just don't cash flow. And so it was like, I'd love it if I'd have some single family stuff sprinkled in my portfolio. 47 buildings, I have 1 because it makes so little. And the only reason I got it was because I bought it as part of a package.
So I have 1 single family I owned before I was an investor. Another single family it's a house with a duplex, and one of them is an ADU, so it's a triplex. the thing that's missing in that is how much do you want to make that first year? You have a number of the yield you want and the minimum you want to break. So my average, and I didn't know this when I was buying, I was just trying for a 10% yield. Luckily, I was in an expensive market. There's actually a reason why I don't invest like Millennial Mike does at a distance. I want the fewest amount of units with the highest amount of cash flow. And so he'll buy a rental that cash flows $250, gets a great yield, and he'll have a bigger portfolio with more cash flow over time than I do, because he's going to grow. He's more like you, more motivated to have a larger portfolio. But my properties, the first year I would average between $400 and $500 a side of a duplex. And by year 3, so owning the properties by year 3, each unit is it's around $1,000. I have one paid off single family house that cash flows a lot, kind of skews it, but the average is around $1,000 a unit because of time.
Mhm.
Right. So if you look at that rental and people go, oh, I'm only making $200 on this, that's not sexy. Boring is sexy. Look in 5 years.
Yeah.
See what that's doing.
Yeah. So I was just looking at one yesterday with one of the guys that I'm working on a deal with, for him, not for me. I showed him a deal that I bought in 2012. I moved into it, rehabbed it, lived there for a few years, then moved into my next one. What was really interesting about that deal, is when I moved in there, rent on one side was, I think, about $1,200. And then we were living in the bigger side. That was like one of the things that I acquiesced to the wife. And I just said, you know what, fine, we'll live in the bigger side on this one. It's fine. So we did, we lived in the bigger side. And so we were renting that other side out for, like I said, 12 to $1,600, somewhere around there. We were renting it out for that almost my mortgage, my payment out of my pocket was about $300, $400, $400 a month, right around there. I just looked at that property. I haven't touched it as far as financially. I haven't refied it, nothing. It's I think it was on a 20-year mortgage. My monthly payment on that property is $2,217. One side rents out for $2,500. The other side rents out for $3,000. That building makes $3,300 a month. It pays 2.5 times my mortgage. I only owe about 150 grand on the place, and it's worth probably 500 or 600K. So it's that time frame, right? Where it's like, if you just started buying properties 18 months ago and you're like, look how rich I am, it's probably not going to stick around for a whole lot of time. Your PFS is likely going to change. It needs to be about the income on the properties. You need to make sure that you stacked cash. However, that time really does cure a lot of wounds, because again, I bought that thing in 2012. It's 2022. It's worth 4 times what I have owed on it. It generates massive cash flow, massive. In fact, literally on every 2 years, it creates enough cash flow for me to go buy another one. That's how awesome that is. And that one's kind of stealing more out of Dion's book because he doesn't like to refi. I call it my Dion property. And
I like my debt equity. I love it.
Everybody knows what I mean.
Flowers at the tombstone
everyone knows what I mean when I call it my Dion property. They're like, so you haven't cash pulled out of it? Nope. Staying strong. Yeah.
So there are people who sometimes say, well, it really must be nice. Anytime you're successful, oh, it must be nice, right? They're not going to do the work, or they don't want to do the work. But sometimes people will say, well, it must be nice because you bought between 2011 and 2015 when we were at the bottom of the market. And it was really easy to find cash flowing properties. Mm-hmm. So here's the really quick 30-second breakdown. I have 16 rental units. 9 of them were acquired since 2020. This is what you can do now in today's market. With all the craziness, the pandemic, the eviction moratorium, the interest rates playing vertical pong, like whatever's going on, you can do this now. It doesn't have to be the best years ever, because Zuber's done his 52-year spreadsheet. The second and third best years out of 52 years to ever buy a property was 2020 and 2021.
That can't be. I watched a lot of crash videos. They said that was not right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. So yeah, it's just kind of silly. Ashley, how often do your cities inspect? Mine is every 2 to 4 years. What's the average? So in my county, they only inspect. So we don't have, once you get a certificate of occupancy, that's it. The only thing that they inspect is if the system, if the heating system is for more than 5 units and it's one heating system, then the state inspects it. Outside of that, we don't have what are called COCs, certificates of compliance. We don't have those in my county. That's one of the reasons I picked my county. It kept down on all these ongoing costs and inspections. And it's like, they certify in the beginning, check, you're good. That, and then they're just like, yeah, that's good. And then if there's another issue that comes up, then they take care of it. So it's not, but there are cities like Manchester, New Hampshire, that do it every 3 years. And what I can tell you is, every time you get that COC letter, go to your bank, get a $3,000 check and wrap it around it because you're going to spend it, guaranteed. Dion, what are do you have that where you guys are? Do you guys have like aside from Section 8 or housing?
So no, there's one city in Washington, and I don't want to name it, but Lakewood, Washington sucks. They have a rental program that goes and inspects your properties. I think it's every 5 years. And when I first acquired one, they sent out a 19-year-old with no training to inspect my property. It's a duplex, and one side had soffit repair, and they had used a different color when they painted the soffit on one side than the other. They required that I use the same color paint like an HOA, and I specifically buy properties that aren't in an HOA. These are two sides of the duplex that can't be seen at the same time. It's a V shape, and it's the exterior. And then they went into the tenants and inspected and found a Disney Princess light switch cover and made them change it because it didn't match the other ones. So unless it was a crazy screaming good deal, because for a long time I said I will never own in Lakewood again. And then I saw a triplex for sale that I was like, oh, this is a good deal. The numbers look really good. And I was thinking about it. And then I helped a friend buy it. So I ended up not getting it myself. But that's one out of 7 places that I invest that does that. I invest in unincorporated Tacoma, and they have an inspection company that can do things, but I've never seen or heard from them. So
excellent. Landlording right now, in the process of landlording.
That's okay.
It has to.
You got to do your stuff. We're sharing our time and our knowledge, and I'm also trying to coordinate things here too. I've got people reaching out and saying, you're in California, we were supposed to do this and this and this. And I'm like, yeah, I'm trying to hide from the world. I hate the state. Somebody like Dividend Dave said, is Dion moving to California? We lose him forever. No, my mantra while driving here is, I hate this state. I hate this state. So when I see something, it's like, oh, that's one of the reasons I hate this state.
It's awesome. Let's see. Legacy Op, hit the like button. Thank you guys. I appreciate that. Dan and I both appreciate it. Leroy, Christopher Leroy, thank you for that as well. Consider logic. So you're telling me that an investor has to adjust to the market, not the market to the investor? How novel. I know, right? Well,
I always use the law enforcement analogy.
Yeah. I mean, the crazy thing about this is that so many people, right? And this is the way that they think, and this is why they often continue to fail. It's because they go in it with a plan. This is my plan. This plan should work. My plan's not working. It should work. I'm going to keep on doing my plan. My plan, nope, nope, I'm going to keep on doing my plan. Guess what? Your plan was wrong. It's okay. I pivot. It's the way it goes. I've had units where I started midterm rental and I was like, nope, don't like that. Didn't make nearly as much money as I thought I was going to make. So I went back, I went to long-term. Good. You just have to be flexible and you have to be able to pivot. The key is understanding what your options are with a given asset. And you want to do that before you buy it, not after you buy it. Understand, like Dion says, what are the drivers in the area? Is it one employer? We had an Air Force base 25 years ago, close. Guess what happened to housing? Off a cliff. It was in a town of 23,000 people. All of the surrounding towns is maybe 100,000 people. And it was, the base closure was 10,000 people. That hurt. Now, that being said, that has built up. Now the housing is worth 3 times what it was worth then, because private industry came in and blew up the area. Why? Because there was available and affordable housing at the time. Guess what? Now it's not affordable anymore. So, but now it's a broader base. It's financial firms and software firms and investment companies and all of these different things, right? Insurance firms. Liberty Mutual, one of the world's largest providers of insurance, they're based here. So we have a pretty big bucket there. But while they might be the largest, they're less than 8% of the overall. And even if they, pulled out or changed something, the market wouldn't go boom. They're an 8% employer in the one town that they're in. But because they're not a big town, because it's not a town of like 1 million people, this is where you can get away with investing in towns that are 20,000 and 15,000 people. 8% of 20,000 people, it's generally speaking, it's a big number, but if they were to move, it's 8% of basically a group of about 100,000 people. They're 8% in that one town, it's about 1,600. In 100,000 people, are you going to feel 15 or 1,600 people leaving? You're going to feel it, but is it going to be a generational thing or a 10-year thing or a 7-year thing? Probably not. Probably not. Consider the
I invest in a town. I had to look it up.
Yeah.
623 people.
See, that has me beat.
That's why I own a duplex.
Bothers me. You have me beat. Like,
And
who's the biggest employer who's the biggest employer in the town? The barber.
So the town is next to a town where I used to live. So you have commuters, 30 minutes from Tacoma, 30 minutes from Olympia. So it's kind of a triangle wedged from commuters. You're 30 minutes away, but it's next to the largest base in the area. And the way the base is shaped, on one side, it's Tacoma, Lakewood, all these municipalities, big, huge cities, right? So if you're from LA and you join the Army and you get stationed in Washington, you're going to want to live in the city, right?
Sure.
That's just used to it. If you're from Texas in a rural area and you move, the last thing you're going to do is live in the city next to the base, but you can live out in this little town with 623 people and have this massive demand for my little duplex. And here's the funny thing. Neither side is rented to military.
That's crazy. And
I just knew it was worth buying because I have the demand if the tenant moves out.
So I do business in a town that is about 30,000 people, like 27 to 29. It's about 30,000 people. I have another one that's about 15,000 people. Then I have another one that's only 3,000 people. 3,000 people is not a densely populated town. The other two are cities. They're considered cities because of their LLC and how they incorporate. And yes, I've sent them Dion's videos on LLCs. But what's really interesting is that really tiny town, people want that town because it's so exclusive. I get more money per unit in that town or per bedroom in that town than I do in the other towns. It's kind of.
So here's what's funny. That town, if somebody wants to fact check me, it's McKenna, Washington, McKenna. And I get the same, almost the exact same rent in my duplex there that I do in all my other duplexes. I think it might be $50 off or something, but it's close. I mean, it's not like it's half the price because it's a tiny little town.
So the person that just popped up on screen, Kenneth Stock, go back to work.
Does he work for you or with you?
Yes.
Nice.
That's
what he's saying right now. Matt, you're at work. You're my boss. You're supposed to be.
I told him I couldn't answer any questions for like an hour and a half. So
and if you would like more of this pre-recorded show, which was done at 9:00 at night on Thursday, please stay tuned.
Yeah. One of the things we always talk about is how important your people are for you. And Kenny is one of those guys. He's absolutely fantastic. He's worked for me for probably a little over a year. He's been a huge part of us being able to grow our business. And so he's been great. It really is the importance of team. I cannot underscore anymore. It is hugely important. And yeah, Kenny's one of the good ones. He's been great, great for us, great for the business, helping us grow. And yeah, it's been a pleasure working alongside him and often trading love notes at 10 p.m. at night. Just going, hey, here's a list for tomorrow. And he just gives me the thumbs up, or he gives me this when he has a question. So it's really good. Dion, any other closing words for us today, my friend?
No, this weekend I'm going to be putting together possibly a short live stream or a video on a mistake tenants are making right now, pretty much across the country. that landlords need to be ready for and have their 2 defenses in place for.
That sounds amazing. I'm looking forward to it. When is that going to happen?
When I'm not doing
Awake.
something else. I don't know. When I'm awake. I mean, it'll be somewhere between second and third nap.
I appreciate you waking up for our time today together.
I can't tell you in words. I can't put it in words. I can't even put it in video. I'm not saying retire because you need to and blah, blah, blah. I'm saying I don't think you're prepared for how amazing life is without a schedule. I want you to think of this. Think of when you were like 25 and you were just starting out in life. If you won the lottery, $10 million, and you never have to work again, you can go anywhere you want, do anything you want, buy anything you want, help anyone you can. That's what this is like. Except it's better. Because you're not going to lose it. You're not going to file bankruptcy like 70% of the people who win big sums. You're not going to, it's a repeatable process. So if you ever did lose it, you could do it again. And Zuber says, every day is Saturday. And I don't think people think of the strength of that. Most people work for the weekend. And all of a sudden, it's completely irrelevant because every day is a vacation. And so I'm not saying do it sooner. I'm saying doing it when you're ready. But I don't know that because I didn't. I had no idea. I thought, it'll be kind of cool not to work. I should have done this 4 years ago.
Well, see, that's the other thing too, is I really know that I'm going to really enjoy it. And so it's like, literally, I have to get to the point where I'm just like, nope, good. I'm out. Yeah, I'm out. I never want to go back. I never want to do it again. I am more than happy to start my my professional hair growing crusade.
I got out of the Marines. I went 8 years without a haircut. It's all my pictures. It's down to my belt until I started not having any.
And then it just looks Costanza-y. Is that the issue?
Yep. Exactly.
That's awesome. Guys, we want to thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us. You're an absolute blast. We love this community. We love hanging out with you guys. Love sharing what we have. Hopefully it's helpful. We love your questions. We love that you guys interact with each other. It's great community. So we appreciate you guys always in there answering and asking questions and hanging out. We always try and create great content for you guys. Oh, I see the one last question. Tennessee Tweety, great question. The course I expect to be out the very end of the year. We've got some stuff going through editing right now, but we will have one very important thing probably hitting the first week of December, which is going to be my portfolio stress test application. It's going to give you guys the ability to download. Essentially, I don't want to say it's a spreadsheet because it really isn't. It's way further past that. But it will give you the ability to download this, enter in all of your numbers, and then give you sliding bars, up and down numbers, to be able to give you an understanding of if things start to go bad, if things get worse, if things start to impact you, you'll be able to slide that up and down and really see what the numbers really are going to start to impact you as. I think it's really important. Banks stress test themselves. The government stress tests the banks. I think it's important for us as operators of our businesses to stress test our businesses. Dion does it in his way. I do it in my way. And when I was doing it, I just said, I need something that gives me the ability to just put the inputs in and then see it and then toggle and play back and forth with some numbers, but do it with a slide so I can really start to see, okay, here I'm getting into an end zone. We're going to have that stuff out for you guys. But yeah, the course will probably be the end of the year, beginning of next. We just want to make sure that we cover everything. And then we're also going to do, as part of the course, we'll have like a boot camp. The boot camp piece, we're going to make one where it's kind of like a Saturday boot camp or our day boot camp where we just we're going to spend a 4-hour session or 2 2-hour sessions and just boot camp through a bunch of stuff. But there's going to be 2 options for folks. And like I said, I'm super excited to do it just because it's literally everything that I've gone through in the last 20 years that I think will help some folks. As always, we create great content for you. Check out Dion on Dion Talk Financial Freedom. Make sure you hit the notification bell for his live streams. I can't stop playing with my 20-sided die. I can't help it, Dion. It's just, I've never had a 20-sided die. So now that I have one, I think of things that I can roll the dice on. So it's pretty cool. Guys, have a fantastic day. Lumberjack Landlord, please make sure you subscribe or at least hit the like button. Only 88 likes? Come on. Dion, thanks again, my man. We'll talk soon, everybody. Take care.
Ciao.
We're good.